Well, first of all, I call upon the Most Holy Trinity, whose triune distinctiveness and unity you have just invoked, to assist me this morning in speaking to you in a meaningful way. The name is Daniel, and I'd have to say that being a Catholic priest at Augsburg College, which I understand is Lutheran, it might be as if I feel like Daniel in the lion's den. But however, if that were true, I would say it would be a truth that was of the past and not of the present, because I am here because I met a student from this college by the name of Bill Betzler. He works over at St. Mary's, and I went to see him there last night. But we first met. I'm still a priest. There are a lot leaving. I'm still one. And I tell you, one of the reasons I am is because of people like Bill. Because things like this are a proof that God's still around. I hear you got a little scolding yesterday for being white and Anglo-Saxon. Well, we need scoldings at times. But we need to know, too, that God is present in everyday things. And I make a very humble confession to you. The reason I was at St. Mary's is I had a hernia operation. I won't show you any of the scars or stitches. Which is a rather ordinary thing, but it was through this that I met Bill, and that's why I'm here. And I think God has to do with ordinary things of life. T. Williams spoke to you yesterday, and he's from the Phyllis Wheatley Settlement House. Now, I haven't met T. Williams, but he had a lot of things to say which were very important, I would judge. He was talking about the education that we receive. Kind of an unreal thing. He spoke about segregation, that the black man is not really a part of that, that the white church dictates to the lowly blacks, that it perpetuates a middle-class paternalism, that you memorize the Pledge of Allegiance and you can say it, but you don't mean it. Well, I would just say, he thinks he's got problems. I mean, man, no offense to anyone, but I'd like to make a few comments about these things, true as they may be with reference to the Catholic Church. You want to talk about segregation? Well, let's just put it since the time of the Reformation for the last 450 years, when your friend and mine, Martin Luther, stood up to the church. There is a great segregation within the Catholic Church. And I'm saying this purposely, not because I'm bitter, but I want you to know what the situation is. The church is considered to be the bishops and what they say. It's not me, it's the Holy Father. It's not me, it's the Archbishop. You've got to depend upon some enunciated dogma. If you want to make some changes in the liturgy, you have to wait from, a word from the great Holy Father, the great White Father, our local cold-blooded German Shepherd. Now, he is local. Temperamentally, he is Germanic, and therefore he is very cold-blooded. And he is our shepherd. So, I mean, those are all true. In case I'm quoted. So we have segregation that is practiced within the great Roman Catholic Church. How long ago was it that we, as a people, made the geographic discovery that the earth is round, that there is an east as well as a west? And yet we find such isolationism. We find that when it comes to a valid Christian voice speaking from the East that we really haven't listened. Geographically, our knowledge is way ahead of our religious knowledge. That we have withdrawn within the citadels of dogmatism, and we perpetuate the past in the present, and we put a barrier between ourselves and others. Now, as I say, I'm still a Catholic priest, and I'm sticking with the structure. But I can tell you this, it's not in terms of the perpetuation of a past paternalism. As T. Williams, he called it middle-class paternalism. You memorize the Pledge of Allegiance and you say it, but you don't really mean it. Well, now, I don't know what kind of religious instructions you received, but I know what kind I received, and I suspect that there is a certain similarity between the Baltimore Catechism and the Catechism of Martin Luther. And I can say that because I have many good Lutheran friends, ministers, and laity alike. And one would be inclined to say that what we do by memorizing these dogmatic definitions is not really understand, and we say things, but we really don't mean it. So this applies to the church too. It applies to a church which has made us to be what we are, and man alive, it stinks. Oh, if it were only that simple. You know, if it were a physical smell. But it's not. Something stinks in Denmark. Man alive, something stinks in the whole Christian world. Now again, I'm not bitter. I'm just looking and trying to analyze. And really, I have a very simple message today. Bill, tell me when it's time. I don't want to go over time. I notice Dr. Nichols is here, and I'm going to repeat something that I said in his presence before. And it shook up a lot of people. But, you know, when you talk to students, it's a different situation. And I think the students have the faculty outnumbered. Over there in Longfellow, from Franklin to Minnehaha Park, and from the river to Hiawatha, this geographic territory is referred to as Longfellow. Now, we are told that something like 95% of the people in that area are church-orientated. Now, if you count the churches and the ministers and the priests, you would say that there are about 35. But in that area, there are 35,000 Christians. And I just say to you, to hell with the clergy. Sorry about that, Pastor. To hell with the clergy. You have been too dependent upon the clergy in the past. You have been so willing to let them tell you what it means to be a Christian rather than you figure it out for yourself. Let the other guy do it. Now, if that is an invalid judgment with regard to the Lutheran Church, and I apologize. I really do. But I will not for the Catholic Church, because I know that is true. The average life expectancy of a Dominican priest is something like 42 years of age. You know, this is kind of ridiculous. But it's going to be different in the future. I mean, I wouldn't stay within the church if I didn't see great signs for renewal. And one of the significant things that's happening in our time is that one can say to hell with the clergy because you are the church. You are the church. It's no longer the minister or the priest alone or the rabbi. It is the people. You are the ones who are going to change the world. You want to get rid of the rote learning of the Pledge of Allegiance and of the Catechism of Martin Luther, and really mean what you say? Put the meaning of the Catechism of Martin Luther into terminology of urban redevelopment into something which is understandable to your friends and your next door neighbor, and then you've got a valid Christianity going. Boy, you sing hymns beautifully. You really do. Well, and I tell you, in the Catholic Church, we're 500 years behind you. I mean, our Mass is a liturgical monstrosity. I think we have something to learn from one another. I have no doubt. I spoke over at Holy Trinity Lutheran about 2 months ago, and Dr. Roth was there. And he, you just never know what's going to happen. He spoke about, I was supposed to talk about what the Lutheran Reformation meant to me as a Catholic priest. But I responded to his talk, and he spoke about poverty, chastity, and obedience. As the values of all the people, not as vows, but as values of all the people in the High Middle Ages. Well, now I've drawn certain conclusions from that, you see, because I've had the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience for the past 15 years. And from what Dr. Roth said, now I would draw this conclusion, and I realized that it would be open to criticism, and that the vows for the past 15 years have more or less habituated me to a sense of irresponsibility with regard to private property. That's poverty. Serious personal decision. That's obedience. And marital love. That's chastity. Now, the vows were concrete realizations of the highest values of that age. What Dr. Roth showed was that the Reformation destroyed these values and what effect it's had in the modern world. So Martin Luther changed your life and mine too. But we're at a point where, you see, I can learn from Dr. Roth, and I can say either these vows have some meaning in the modern world or they don't. And if they don't, man alive, they don't mean a thing to me. Hey, guess what? I'm 36 years old. Do you hear that from somebody who's so ancient, losing my hair already? But I think that we can learn from one another. What it means to be a Christian. Lutherans and Catholics and Presbyterians, the white man and the black man, the East and the West, will someday come together and share one another's thoughts. And then you have a chance, to change the world. But not in terms of the past. Now, and I would just say, I'm not in favor of throwing out all tradition, and it's not as simple. It's a very complex, difficult thing to discover what things there are in your tradition and in my tradition which are valid Christian values. That's very difficult. So I'm not for throwing all these things out of the past, but many of us, we can't perpetuate those things in the past which make our lives as Christians unrelated right here and now. And the only way we're going to do that is that we listen to one another, and for heaven's sakes, that it's not just dependent upon the clergy. I want to read something to you, kind of in conclusion. This comes from Amsterdam, and this is a National Catholic Reporter. It's a Catholic paper, and it hasn't been condemned yet. The situation of the Church in the United States is alarming, and there is danger of schism there, says Father Edward Skillebex, who just returned from a 2-month tour of the United States. Well, he says that what the bishops are thinking and saying is not what the people and the priests are thinking and saying. There is a lack of communication, and therefore he predicts a schism. Now, the fact that that man can say that, he's a fellow Dominican priest, and, it was a Dominican priest who interrogated Martin Luther. Phew. Sorry about that. But we're not in the same situation today. This is from Cross Currents. It's a, see where it comes from. Well, it's a recognized publication, and it hasn't been condemned either, which kind of points out that we're living in a different age than Martin Luther and Cardinal Cajetan. I mean, what does the Reformation mean to me as a Catholic priest? In practice, not a thing. Neither does it doesn't mean a thing to Pastor Groff either. Pastor Wayne Wickren. The local Lutheran shepherds. Doesn't mean a thing. Here we go. Adaptation to, this is a study of the sociological structure of the Roman Catholic Church in terms of effectiveness, both on the part of the organization and on the part of the individual. In the past, the Church has shown a remarkable capacity to adapt itself to the requirement of certain ages. The present difficulty, however, is that the Church has so thoroughly wedded itself to the metaphysics, bureaucratic structures, and political style of the medieval monarchies that change is a painfully slow process. So this man is saying, Don Warwick, he's saying that the Church has a monolithic structure which is not related to our times, that it's promoting an ancient medieval metaphysics and theology. Now that man wasn't condemned either. But when you say those things publicly in a periodical, when you have people like James Kavanaugh, who says you can take your structural church and go to hell. Says it publicly at Notre Dame, and he's married. When you have things like this happening, and Charlie Davis in England. Wasn't a Dominican, neither was James Kavanaugh. But there are Dominicans who are doing the same thing. Charles Davis says the structural Christian church is neither interested in truth or in people. If I thought that was really true, I'd leave tomorrow. Today. I might propose to one of you pretty girls. If that were really true. And you are in a structured Christian church. And, stick with it. Or if you think it's completely dead, get outside of it. Work in some other way. Be what you think you have to be in order to give a Christian witness. And if you're going to stay within the Lutheran Church, well then, fight to make that church a sign of Christ and His redemptive message in the modern world. Because if you don't, you're just coming here for security. And I don't think that's what you want. Well, I asked the Holy Trinity to inspire me. I'm not going to blame any of my words on the Holy Trinity, upon God. I'm sure that in any of our endeavors that have good effects, that God is present. And I want to thank you for coming here. I'm really amazed that this many of you would come out, on a day, school day, and attend a religious service. I'm really impressed by that. I want to thank Bill for his ministrations at St. Mary's Hospital and for being the occasion of my coming here. Thank you.